If you're playing Doom Eternal on console, then you may have asked yourself at some point, how the hell am I supposed to move like the guys who are playing on PC? Well, it's no surprise that most of the top gamers in the Doom community are on PC. With all the different key bindings available on mouse and keyboard, PC players seem to have quite the advantage over us console players. Now, I know I'm not new to this conversation. In fact, if anything, I'm super late to the party. I know there have been a lot of console players who have configured their controller in certain ways that works for them. For instance, I saw a guy last year who was demonstrating one particular way of handling the controller deemed the claw. Now, I had tried this for all of about a day, and then I gave up on it. While I understood the advantage of being able to utilize the right pointer finger for jump, dash, and equipment items, I just couldn't bring myself to contort my hand in such an awkward way, especially if I'm playing for hours on end. Another method I've heard multiple console players using is to map jump to one joystick and dash to the other. I know this method definitely works to some degree, as the guys who recommended it are in fact really friggin' good. Personally, I couldn't bring myself to try it because it just seemed like my thumbs would hate me after an hour of constantly clicking while simultaneously moving in all different directions. So, with all that said, I want to share with you this guy. This is the PowerA Fusion Pro controller. At the time of the recording of this video, you can snag one of these off of Amazon for a super affordable $80. I will have a link down in the description below. Now, before I go any further, I need to note PowerA is not sponsoring this video. They did not pay me to promote their product in any way. These are my opinions, and they will be seeing this at the same time that you are. Also, this is my first and only Pro remote, and I cannot compare it to something like the Elite Series 2 controller from Microsoft, except to point out the whopping $235 price difference. Seriously, for $80, the Fusion Pro is a fantastic controller. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Doom Eternal is a fast-paced, high-skill first-person shooter. It requires quick thinking, agile reflexes, and lots of movement. Given how intense the combat encounters can be, players need to be able to learn the art of moving fast while simultaneously firing off a barrage of shots from their arsenal. If you want to stay alive, your best chance is to utilize every axis: left, right, forward, backward, and jump. So how exactly does the Fusion Pro remote help in this regard? These paddles. Yeah, you've probably heard Hugo mention in his streams that he normally likes to use a remote with paddles. In my humble opinion, it's the truest and best way of playing Doom Eternal on console. Now, I've spent years of my life pressing A to jump and B for other things like grenades or punching or crouching or whatever. I never quite realized how much back and forth my right thumb was having to do to make these actions happen. Well, not anymore. First thing I did with the Pro Remote was to map one of the paddles to A for jumping. For Doom Eternal, dashing is another vital tool for dodging enemy projectiles, or complex level traversal. So another paddle was going to be mapped to B for dashing. Then I had to ask myself, what are two other critical tools that I could map to the remaining two paddles? Well, the standard controls in Eternal have Flame Belch on Y, Chainsaw on X, Equipment Swap on the D-pad, and Equipment Use on L1. Well, after experimenting for a short while and considering the amount of usage between those four tools, I opted for putting Equipment Swap on the third paddle and Equipment Use on the fourth. But Chaos, Chainsaw, and Flame Belch are the key to regaining ammo and armor. Well, true enough. But the Chainsaw triggers a brief animation, so there's no need to keep aiming when that happens. And the Flame Belch doesn't share a button with another equipment item, so he can live on his own where he is at Y. So we have Jump, Dash, Equipment Use, and Equipment Swap on the backside of the controller now. Time to start training the 4 extra digits. The first 4 or 5 hours of practice was certainly weird. I had to try out different layouts of which action was where. After a while, I found that it was more comfortable to have jump mapped to my left middle finger and dash mapped to my right middle finger. These were the first 2 functions I practiced once I got them set in this configuration. I used the fortress to jump around for quite a while to really engage my left middle finger. Then I would just practice dashing with my right middle finger. Once I felt like I had both in the game, I then started practicing doing both at the same time. Find a target and try keeping your crosshair on that target while dashing side to side or jumping left and right. Move in circles a lot while constantly jumping and dashing. You are now practicing the Doom Dance. The ring fingers were a little trickier to engage. This took some straight-up combat to really get the hang of, but man, it feels great to be able to launch an ice bomb, followed immediately by 2 grenades, while simultaneously setting things on fire and then firing the rocket launcher or sticky bombs or whatever other combination of weapons. Talk about fast restacks. The controller itself feels great. It's a little bit heavier than a standard Xbox controller and has a really nice textured grip to prevent any slipping. The joysticks have these smooth as glass rings that make hard movement so much more pleasant. You don't quite realize just how much texture there is on the standard controllers until you try this thing out. The back paddles are removable, so you don't have to play with them if you don't want. They're also incredibly easy to program. One final note about the Fusion Pro remote that I think will be a caveat to some players, and that is this. Yep, it's wired. Wop wop. There is no wireless option for this guy. You have to have it connected to your console in order to play with it. Personally, I'm fine with this. I spent years playing with wired controllers and I managed just fine. Some people like the freedom of being able to move around with a wireless controller, and that's fine too. I will say the cable for this controller is very well crafted. The shielding on it is braided, so I'm not concerned at all about it breaking or ripping. The connection to the controller has a locking mechanism, so it can't be accidentally disconnected, and there is a safety release near the USB Type-A end should it get tripped. That way the cord doesn't get yanked from the USB port on your console. This has definitely been a helpful feature on a couple of occasions. Anyway, that's just a quick look at the PowerA Fusion Pro remote and how it can benefit your gameplay for Doom Eternal on Xbox. It definitely improved my game almost immediately, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's looking to dive further into the fun zone. If you like this video, share it with your friends and give it a thumbs up. This is a growing channel of Doom content, so stay tuned for more ripping and tearing.